an unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So this morning we had a recognition ceremony, memorial, a kind of memorial for Thomas Cleary, the translator who died on June 20th in Oakland, California. It was very quiet. Very few people knew about this. And so I was very surprised to hear about it, as were other teachers. And so one of the things that we did this morning was to just read a brief, I just sort of picked it out of the book of Balance and Harmony, out of his 30. He has 30 different amazing translations in Taoism and Buddhism and Confucianism. And so I simply picked out one reading in recognition of his fine work. So I will read it, and I think maybe it relates a little bit to what I want to talk about tonight. So this is called Shining and Wandering. The shining mind is always calm. In action, it responds to myriad changes. Even when active, it is essentially always calm. The wandering mind is always stirring. In quietude, it produces myriad thoughts. Even when quiet, it is basically always astir. Of old, it has been said, always extinguish the stirring mind. Don't extinguish the shining mind. The unstirring mind is the shining mind. The mind which does not stop is the wandering mind. The shining mind is the mind of Tao. The wandering mind is the human mind. When it is said that the mind of Tao is vague, this means it is subtle and difficult to see. When it is said that the human mind is in peril, this means it is insecure and uneasy. Even in the human mind, there is the mind of Tao. Even in the mind of Tao, there is the human mind. It is a matter of persistently keeping centered and balanced in activity and stillness, so that the shining mind is always present and the wandering mind does not stir. Then what was insecure will become peaceful, and what was vague will become clear. At this point, the errant mind comes back, and the error-free Tao is accomplished. This is what the I Ching calls coming back to see the heart of heaven and earth. So I wanted to talk a little bit tonight about the situation of well, just before I say that, it occurs to me that in one of his introductions, Cleary says that it isn't that the Japanese culture created the Tao or Taoism, it's the Taoism created the Chinese culture, which is a very, very different thing. What creates our culture and what do we do in the culture that we are living in? So I wanted to say that right now we are living with a great deal of a lack of trust. Even in our buildings falling down, in the apartment, that very sad situation in Miami, we feel a sense, a lack of trust, even about the buildings that we are living in. Maybe after that, we look at any high-rise building and wonder, will it remain? And even if we don't know anybody in Miami, no matter what, if we read the article, we get a sense of unease about the structures that we have built and whether our own structure that we are living in is secure enough to not fall down on our heads. But we're also living in a time of what some have called a paranoia culture of America. We're all living at a time when there's a mistrust of just about everything. And we have conspiracy theories abounding. And this rises out of mistrust and a lack of trust in one another, in our society. And of course, we also have a question of trust of one another and how we are together in trusting everyday life. But I want to talk mostly about trust in ourselves, because trust in ourselves is the central piece of our Zazen practice. Very important. We don't think about it so much, or we don't even think about what role trust plays in being able to be present and being able to practice awareness in Zazen. And yet trust is at the basis of all of that. And our practice of trust, of course, reaches into our society and helps us hold it together. So imagine, I'll hold this up for those of you who are behind me. So imagine this straight line is our line of the self and the self in trust and the line of experience. I want to say first that when we talk about the self, I'm talking about this self right here, this self that is sitting here. I know that I am in this reality. I'm sitting in this room. I'm aware of my body. I'm aware of others around me. I'm aware of our interactions and our interrelationship. And this is our basic place of trust in this reality and in this basic self. This is different from the no self that we talk about. That is the self without ego. But this basic self that we are talking about may also be without ego, and yet functions with all that we do and functions in daily life. And it's necessary that that be the case. That this trust self, this trusting self functions with all that we do. We trust one another, we trust the people around us, mostly we do. And we, of course, practice caution where necessary. But it's this basic self that is necessary in our Zen practice. So back to this line then. Let's say this line represents the basic self, basic trusting self and experience. Now, we are going to be in all kinds of situations in our lives. We're going to meet calamity. We're going to meet difficulties of all kinds. We are going to have death. Friends are going to die. Our parents are going to die. We are going to die. And all of these things are those possibilities that are going to be in our experience. So the degree to which we are able to trust ourselves to meet all of these kinds of things that make jagged lines along this line of experience is primary to how we are able to stabilize our lives and bring balance and harmony. If we suffer from anxiety and anything like that, we are going to stay on this line here that is very point of experience that retards our ability to have greater experience along this experiential line. It's going to retard and hinder our ability to trust ourselves in Zazen. It's going to keep us from our very good interrelationships and to trust all these possibilities of experience. Now, let's say that this is our great experience of awakening along this experiential line. There is nothing in our primary experience, in our previous experience, that can lead us up to be able to deal with this. This is something different that we have not experienced before. And the question is, are we able to trust ourselves to be able to experience those kinds of things and kinds of experiences that are offline from this basic line here? I don't mean that life is like this or that it's linear or anything like this. I'm just trying to illustrate something. If we cannot allow ourselves to trust that we can deal with all kinds of experiences, those experiences won't come to us. We retard our ability to open to the myriad level of experiences that life offers us. And life will give us those difficulties. There's no doubt about that. We will all die and we will experience the death of friends and family. There's no doubt about that. And how do we trust ourselves in those kinds of experiences to be able to come through and deal and cope with great difficulties, to deal with suffering around us? So this basic self-trust is really important. And as I say, at this time in our cultural happenings, that we trust ourselves is extremely important. Wherever we go these days, we find this sense of anxiety about our society. We've just come through the pandemic. Tomorrow, our state opens, and we are free, if we are vaccinated, to mingle, to actually see one another's faces again. We've had a year of deep anxiety. Anxiety, is it okay to do this? Is it okay to come out? Will we be all right? Can we manage? We are fearful of whether the new kind of COVID, the new kind of virus, is going to cripple us yet again. What is one's trust? What is one's self-trust? Can we truly trust ourselves deeply enough that when we sit zazen, we allow these experiences that are not our daily natural experience, but we allow opening to different experiences that expand and fortify our spiritual health and our spiritual body. So we have to know where we are. We have to know what our levels are. And we have to, if we are way down here in an inability to trust in zazen, trust ourselves in zazen, to be present, then we have work to do. We have a lot of work to do, because anxiety and anger and all of the emotions that take us off track in here, that test us and that test our trustability, are going to hinder our ability to awaken, to be awake in zazen. That the mind rolling around, as it says in the balance here, the wandering mind, even can be so strong in us that we can't hear the birds, we can't hear the song of the earth, we can't sense the wind when it comes up and hear the voice of the wind. as it did the other night, that I'm sure you all were just thrilled by that moment when the heat was so impactful and suddenly the earth changed and the wind came across the lake here, and it was very, very expressive and beautiful and exciting and delicious. And are we open to that? Are we truly beginning to trust ourselves so that we allow these experiences to open us and take us out off that line of hindrance? Well, as the Tao says, that even in the human mind, there is the mind of Tao. Without a doubt, that's it. That is the case. And even in the mind of Tao, there is the human mind. So no matter what, that is there. But it always amuses me when these books on Taoism give so many words to it. And the very first line of the Tao is, the Tao that can be spoken is not the Tao. And we give so many words to the Tao, the Tao that cannot be spoken. And at the same time, all of this language is a compassionate gift to us. At the very same time, it is a pulling us to give up our hindrances, to give up our small, self-controlled situations that inhibit the opening to the great wonder of the Dharma. So it is a matter of persistently keeping centered and balanced in activity and stillness, so that the shining mind is always present and the wandering mind does not stir. It isn't that we get rid of the wandering mind, but we allow the wandering mind to not stir. Then what was insecure, that is, what was insecure, us on this low level, I don't mean to say low level, but on this line here with very brief experience, not opening to experience, that kind of thing, it means that the shining mind is always present. It's a matter of persistently keeping centered and balanced in activity and stillness, so that the shining mind is always present and the wandering mind does not stir. Then what was insecure will become peaceful, and what was vague will become clear. Coming back to see the heart of heaven and earth. So that is our great challenge in this time, to not be a Pollyanna about it, but to really root ourselves so deeply in trusting ourselves, no matter what comes forward, that we will remain balanced, we will remain calm, we will remain okay. I mean, it isn't that we don't have eruptions. It isn't saying that we shouldn't have those. It's that can we trust ourselves within those eruptions, within those episodes of difficulty, to come back to that stillness. Anybody have any questions? Any questions? Any questions?
Seems as if Zazen is a training for all of us. If we can sit Zazen in that trust, the continuous experience of that, of coming back to Zazen again and again and again, would help us open to whatever experience is coming forward.
Yes. That is, yes, yes.
Eido-san,
Mm-hmm.
I experience the wandering, anxious mind as making me prone to becoming contracted.
Yes.
Like an anemone that gets touched and then,
Yes.
and I lose my ability to feel the presence of other beings. And
Yes, that's exactly what happens.
And what I'm wondering is, that reactivity is a habit,
Yes.
a deeply ingrained habit.
Yes.
And there are times when it takes me into a state of contraction, even though I'm saying, sit zazen, chant Kanzei Namu, and I just get caught. And then, what I'm saying is, how do we practice in trust when I'm asking an unanswerable question?
Sure, but we think that if we do that one time, it'll be all over and it will never happen again, right? You think that, okay, I this time I won't contract and therefore it'll never happen again. Of course it will happen again. The question is, do you come back to practice in such a way that you trust yourself to return to the cushion again and again? Do you trust yourself to sit? And that you come through. You do come through every time, don't you?
I do.
So you've got it.
Yeah.
It's okay. You're all right. And this is the question, that we're on this line of experience, at the self in experience, in trust. And when these blips happen, do we trust ourselves enough to come back to this equilibrium, to this to allow other experiences to open? And so you can't ask more. It isn't as though we are going to be perfect and that other things are not going to happen, or that we will never get angry, or that we'll never feel anxiety, or that we'll never feel such a thing. Those things are to be human. It is what it is to be human. If you want to create some people create a pseudo personality to pretend that they are in great equilibrium and that they're holy. And it's not true. And so we certainly don't do that. We must be honest about what we are feeling and experiencing. But once again, you come back again and again, and that is called practice, and that is life. Yes. Could you speak well enough for the computer to hear?
I found over and over again that it's in the moments of crisis, when everything is falling apart, that there'll be, underneath it all, there's the calm, there's the clarity.
Yes.
And that's when I think I experience it most. It's not when I'm sitting and trying to be calm, but when everything blows up. And that reserve of calm is there.
Sure, it is. We also have to be very careful that we aren't simply shutting off the emotion around
No.
Okay. I'm just saying. I'm just checking.
As an example, I spent many years caring for my mother. She was living with me in a decline with Parkinson's. And it was the moments when I was actively doing something for her, helping her out of her chair,
Yes.
Helping to change her diapers, her briefs, or it was in those moments of engagement in the activity
Right.
the crisis that the compassion was possible because of the underlying stillness.
Sure. Mhm. Yeah. But I only say that we have to be careful that we don't create a pseudo self that is pretending everything is wonderful, or where we absent ourselves from any situation in such a way that we've created an alternate self within that,
Mhm.
because that is common. So.
One more thing.
Yeah.
It's been important to me to be open to the anxiety, to not just to things that may happen around me, but to the roil of emotions that are already here. If I'm not open to that, then I create a pseudo personality. And it's just not honest.
That's a bypass.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and in being open to, say, anxiety or a panic attack or whatever, that openness is an openness to all of it, and you get through it. There's a trust involved in that. I mean, it's, I don't know any other way to do it, because your ego cannot control it. If I try to control it, that's just my ego playing, boss man. And I have to trust, I have to be open to all of it, and then trust that it does. You get through.
That's called life. It's just life. So, yeah. Not easy at all. But once again, we have spoken recently about learning, and we are always learning in our practice. Our practice is zazen and learning. And so in the situation as you described, that is a learning moment in which you recognize in your own self that you opened to that, you felt the distress, you managed through it, and you trusted that you would come to a balance. And that's what this is, that we're able, we get through. Once again, none of this has anything to do, or none of it is preparation for that experience which goes beyond it, our transcendent, we'll call it that, an awakening experience that lifts us into the no self, into the self of beyond ego for those experiences. And if we are able to open and realize ourselves further along this line of experience, we can open more and more to those rich experiences that happen in our practice, that strengthen us and lead us to trust even greater opening, so that we don't fear that something is happening if the mind is opening to a greater experience. We have to be able to trust that. So, okay, everybody, yeah. Beings are numberless, I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassed, I vow to become his.